Right, good morning guys and welcome to Old Park Farm. This is Toddington Circuit, the Luton Club, second round of their championship, incorporating this time round the NGRs. I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. As you look at the circuit, the riders are going round for timed practice. These are your juniors. They will be going a little bit more than probably your over 40s, 50s and some of your other classes, because they're trying to qualify a time to be in the top 16 of their class, to then proceeding with Group A and get themselves a gate with the experts. Lottie Taylor going past there. To go your over 50s and 60s riders. Nice Triumph there. Classic 500 Quacker. Simon West there going out, the legend, so super cool. As the riders go around practicing at the moment, you can see the track looks pretty much like porridge at the moment. As I said, that will churn its way over and it'll be fine later. Reminiscent of back in the day, going the wrong way, mate. Back in the day, it was a case of we would go out practicing before the races and there'd be 5 foot high stinging nettles, cow and pig shit to go through, and all sorts. Of course, as you know, you hear those infamous words from me, you can't park there, mate. It's because someone's made a complete pig's ear of it and ended up on their backside. Of course, if it was a bit of a nasty incident, I always get in touch with a rider afterwards to make sure it's fine for me to put the content up. But if you make an error, end up on your butt and it's comical, no one's hurt, that's it, it's all banter, guys. We haven't had any rain recently, but thankfully the club done an excellent job last night. Laid down a lot of water that will hopefully keep the dust at bay later during the day, as these bikes go in and they need in the circuit, churn it over, and probably about, say, 11:30, these will be perfect racing conditions. this kind of gives you a perspective of the circuit layout. Fortunately enough, now you can walk the whole circuit all the way around the boundary, so I can give you a more in-depth look at it as we go throughout the day. But obviously this is ideal planning for if you are racing here in the Vets during June, or the Eastern Evos, in fact, which is, I think it's July time, as we now have the Junior Heat 2 out for their time practice. As I said, top 16 will go through into Group A and will be challenging the experts. That really is a leap into the unknown. Currently we have the NGRs out there. This is a championship that was set up back in about the sort of 1988-89 era. I think the guy's name was Nigel Reed. Sadly no longer with us, but his format was to bring guys in their senior years, should we say, those over 30. I know it seems young in the whole scheme of things now that you've got over 60s, etc. But his idea was to bring more mature riders back into the junior sport, and that's what we have here. They ride their own championship and they come from all over the country. Your over 40s and over 60s. Guy Day there. gate has just dropped for your experts and your junior A-class riders. These will be your fastest riders here today. And just put it in perspective what you get now for paying for sport. It's £5 entry gate here, so £5 cash on the gate. Kids are obviously free. And last year, well, not last year, last time out, we had a world champion here, Clarkey. Kind of valley area really does give off a beautiful view. Rider down there by the old oak tree. Mixture of 2 strokes and 4 strokes out here. I'm always going to favour the 2-stroke. It's my era. Not really the kind of jump that you can scrub at. But as long as you're gaining distance, it's distance over height, should we say. They've got to try and launch himself down the hill. They'll preload the suspension, probably somewhere around here. Not fully whack it full blast, because they just sail out into oblivion, but they want to sort of try and hit that, ease off the power. As they start the dip, put the power on to get back down to that corner. everyone. Your leader there, number 100 on the KTM, that is Rob Wood. Luton based, I don't know whether he's any relation to Roger Wood, who I used to race against. Big old fields today, and the sport is still very, very colourful, reminiscent of the sort of stuff I wear in the 90s. I used to wear SoCal. There's a lot of stuff around. The brand still exists now. Axo. Don't see so much Apico anymore. You had that sort of set. M. Robert. Everyone remembers the old Wolf Sport Racing, which was pretty much like your Sports Direct of motocross. You could pick up pretty much an entire kit for somewhere in the region of about 200 quid. But these guys ain't hanging about, that's for sure. As I said, they're plus 30s. It's a pretty strong field, probably somewhere in the region of about 45 riders. And again, you're seeing a lot of brands that never would have been heard of back in my day. A Beta, Fantic, Gas, all these back in my day, they were trials bikes. But then with 4-strokes coming along, they've come into their own. Pretty decent racing throughout the field. These are your junior B riders. Bloody hell. That Lottie Taylor can knock it out the gate. Can't park there, mate. Schoolboy error. Off he goes. Lottie's still there in 7th. This youngster can keep herself out of trouble, fit and healthy. She's got a pretty good future ahead of her. West his own little battle there. Cracking performance here today by Guy Day. park there, mate.
Those riders that require race results, these are posted up and race electrical, which is the red one like this. So the race results are posted up outside the vehicle and red vehicle where the electrical
Call me an old timer, but I'm never going to understand the purpose for having this stay to keep your front wheel down. Back in the day it was all about control. You just drop that clutch when the gate went and hang on for dear life. This is the part of the track that caused so many issues last time as someone's gone down. And Lottie Taylor, if I see from the corner of my eye, is currently in second spot. Unbelievable. You go, girl. late on into the race now, and looks as Lottie's got a third. Insane to think that some of these guys, some of your grandfathers out there leaping into infinity. Oh, now that was nasty. High sided and just chucked him off. See, the problem you've got, what probably happened there is because of the suspension travel and the knobblies, etc., the power of these 4-strokes, it digs out, and then of course the brakes are far superior than what I had. I had drum brakes originally, front and back, so as they come down here, the brakes lock on, being disc brakes, and they start to get a ripple effect. That's why on the roads you've got braking bumps, as they call them, coming into a roundabout. And unfortunately here, the Simon goes round, the back end of the bike will lift up, and I think it come round to meet that guy head on. I've always been of a thought that this is more of a 500 circuit than anything else. Good again to see racing all the way through the field. And as I said, it doesn't matter where you are. If I get a chance to pick you up, I will do. This is more about grassroots motocross. The guys that are at the back of Group B of the juniors are just as important as a guy who wins the expert junior A class. It's the way it should be. First real signs of dust now. Done really well to get this far into the day. I said the track was watered by the club brilliantly yesterday. We just kept it at bay, but with the sun beating down, hard packed surface is going to happen at some point. Right, and with the fastest guys of the day making their way around the track, I'm going to make my exit, say bye for now. I'll catch these guys as I'm making my exit as they go to each part. But thank you so much for watching. It really does mean the world to me. I enjoy this. I said I was very much a part of it in the 80s and 90s. Can't ride anymore due to injury. And so this is my way of giving something back to grassroots motocross. Without this, you don't have GPs, you don't have anything. So enjoy the rest of your weekend. Next time out should be the ACU Vets Championship again at this circuit. I'll usually come on the Sunday, so hopefully everyone will make it through Saturday safely. I'm a bit of a jinx, or have been in the past, with riders getting injured, so I apologise in advance for that one. And anyway, thank you again. See you in the movies. Bye for now.